Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. So it's been a little while, as I keep saying in all of my recent videos, it's been a little while because I've actually been moving showrooms, but I'm actually in the new showroom now, which I'm really pleased about, and I will be doing like a bit of a showroom tour, so to speak. But yes, today you're joining me in a 2016 Maserati Ghibli, because that's how it reads. I'm not sure that's how they want me to pronounce it. The Maserati bit sounds really cool, but I think it's Ghibli, right? Unless anyone can tell me if it's any different. I mean, obviously, if you're Italian, then obviously it means it's very different. But I'm not, so I won't even try to mess up the pronunciation. But yeah, the Ghibli side of it, the name's a bit odd, but the car itself, I have to say, if you look at it, I think it looks beautiful. That really is true to Maserati's form, isn't it? It's a very nice, sporty-looking saloon. And in my opinion, they brought this car out as a rival, or to certainly fill a gap in their market, angled towards the typical person that would buy a BMW 5 Series, an Audi A5/A6, Mercedes C-Class or an E-Class or something like that. Someone that wants something that is a comfortable commuter, still packs a bit of a punch if you have their 3-litre equivalents of, because obviously you get the 530D, 330D, C350s, etc. You know, you can go through it all. So I think this is what they're trying to rival with this car. I think in terms of the looks, I love it. I think it's a really pretty looking car. I think it looks quite muscular, but it definitely has that Maserati flair to it as well. You know, this colour combination I think certainly helps it. I've seen some that I'm not a massive fan of, but I quite like this one. Hence why I bought it for stock. But a dark exterior with a light interior is always something I kind of go for. And I think, you know, in terms of a ride quality, it's quite good, although it can sometimes feel quite firm, especially on these country roads that I'm currently driving. It's got upgraded 19-inch alloy wheels, but it's not exactly low-profile tyres on the wheels either. So I think it is just their suspension setup is quite stiff. I think they've almost taken like a sporty commuter a little bit too sporty. But you know, it's up to them as to what they do. We're all the consumers, but you know, I quite like it. I don't think it's necessarily massively uncomfortable, but maybe if it's for an everyday drive and you are quite often on bumpy roads, it is definitely something to consider. The 3-litre V6 engine, it's a cracking engine in my opinion. It's the one they've always had in their Levante as well, so it's been around for a little while. Obviously this is a 2016 car, so it's been in this car for a little while. It's done 71,000 miles. It was locally supplied by our Cars and Ferrari and Maserati dealership in Exeter, and they've always taken it back to get it serviced there as well, and some of the service bills are slightly eye-watering, it's fair to say. For example, they took it back earlier this year to have a service, and it was just what I can see to be an ordinary service, and it was a promotional price at £899. That was £899, and I can't really see the value in doing that. I mean, it's great news for me as someone selling the vehicle, because of course it's still got that full dealership history, but I would say you're probably better off finding a specialist or garage that you know and trust, because at the end of the day, the 3-litre diesel engine, it's quite an ordinary engine. It's not something that's a particular piece to look after or anything like that. So maybe bear that in mind. You don't always have to take it back to the main dealer. Always find a specialist or something like that you want to use. But all in all, the gearbox is pretty good pairing with the engine as well. It's producing 275 brake horsepower, which for a 3-litre V6 it's you know, quite punchy, isn't it, really? And you definitely feel it. It's quite a responsive engine as well. It's reactive, but when you're putting your foot down, it picks up and goes. And that's the same with this gearbox here as well. And you've also got these paddle shifts on the side, which are quite cool. And in true Maserati/Italian car fashion, which is the same as what you can say for, well, essentially Alfa Romeo do the same thing as well, and some of the older Fiats and stuff. They keep the paddle shifters in one stationary place. They don't go with the steering wheel. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because what they do say is that you should essentially be changing the gear before you take the corner. You shouldn't be changing it mid-corner, which obviously makes sense from a real sports car enthusiast, but for an everyday road car, sometimes you might find that you are in the corner and you just want to hold it back a gear or something like that, and you've your paddle shifts are stationary, so they don't go with the steering wheel. It's more the sporty side of it. I don't mind it. I think it's quite cool. It also sounds quite throaty. But yeah, it's a diesel engine making that noise, and it's coming direct from the exhaust. There's no funny business with the speakers or anything like that. It is coming from that exhaust, and I quite like it. I think it sounds quite good, and it's responsive. You know, it feels quite stiff. Maybe, as I say, sometimes on some roads a bit too stiff, but all in all, an enjoyable driving experience. I just wonder whether they've missed the mark a little bit, because if they are trying to angle towards that BMW 5 Series / Mercedes-Benz E-Class kind of market, they're really well known for being these luxury comfort type cars that will pack a punch if you want them to. So with the bigger engines in those cars, they will rival this kind of performance, but they will provide a slightly better, certainly a more comfortable and enjoyable road going experience on these type of roads, which are quite stiff and quite potholy, which is very common for the roads around here. But all in all, I think it looks fantastic. I think the driving experience is quite good, providing you're prepared for it to be a bit sporty every time you jump into the car. In terms of the quality inside the cabin area, I think, again, quite nice. Leather top door cards, nice wood finish on here. I also really like the wood because it's not been glossed up. Like, you know, sometimes you find that they're really shiny, but that also means they mark quite easy. I think this here is quite hard wearing. As I say, this car's done 71,000 miles and you can't see any scratches or anything like that. I think it's quite a hard wearing finish they've got on the trims, which is quite nice to have. Nice leather steering wheel and leather top dash as well, with a nice analog clock. I always like that. I think it's a bit old school, but it is an essence of luxury in these cars. Christ, I'm going across this road and it is quite bumpy. You know, I will keep saying it is quite bumpy. And you'll also see on the window switches and everything like that, where they've stolen them for other cars throughout the branch that Fiat and Jeep and Maserati and all of those other ones are. So, for example, the light switch is taken straight out of a Jeep that I've recently had into stock. Window switches, again, you'll find these in the Fiat Doblo vans. And I don't mind any of that. I've never really minded it, because obviously they use the resources they've got available. And for the value of this car when it was new, they're going to borrow some parts. You know, this one here does rival BMW side of it, but the build quality can sometimes feel just a little bit cheaper than what you would realistically expect to be tied with a Maserati name. That's what I would say. It's functional, it works, but it doesn't necessarily have the same pizzazz that you would expect in one of their more expensive cars. And I think, you know, it kind of loses that appeal a little bit when someone goes, oh, you know, I want a Maserati because I want it to feel like a Maserati. It doesn't always feel like a Maserati when you're just looking at the finer details. Even so, the screen on the centre here, it's not a bad screen by any means. It seems responsive. It's a little bit fiddly when you actually want to enter in addresses or look for radio stations, but like most cars, you spend 5 minutes with it and you'll kind of get the hang of it. My only gripe is that this is a Maserati, which is the Italian sports car make, that is supposed to be about that pizzazz and that kind of like style and flair to it. They've taken this screen and put it in here straight out of what you could get in a Fiat Doblo van, you know, and that is a little bit, to me, a bit like, well, come on, you could have done something a bit nicer. But, you know, again, it's functional, it works, and I'm sure that they're just trying to keep the cost down so that it is an affordable alternative to your everyday car, such as an everyday brand such as a BMW or something like that. And again, I don't mind that they've done that, providing it does keep that kind of brand to it. I just think they've gone a little bit too far with that side of it. I'm getting a cracking MPG though out of this 3 litre. It's 275 brake horsepower. It's certainly pokey enough, and I'm still averaging on today's drive just over 42 miles to the gallon, and it is twist and turn with the hills and everything like that, so I'm sure on a longer, more steady motorway run you're going to be hitting those high 40s, which is great for what you want from a commuting car like this. The 4-door of course makes it a very practical car as well. There is plenty of space in here. The leather is certainly a nice finish on the seat, feels nice and thick and nice and plush, but they've also followed suit with the German manufacturers, and everything seems to be an additional extra. The heated seats in this one here were an additional extra. The front and rear sensors, the rear sensors come as standard but the front don't, so they were an additional extra. The paddle shifters behind the steering wheel, which I've already mentioned, again, an additional extra. So this here started life actually, as I say, locally supplied with our Maserati dealership in Exeter, and it was their demonstrator. You can see that where it says in the logbook, you know, that belonged to Maserati. And so this has got a few nice bits to it, which is lovely. Power fold mirrors and the automatic xenons and everything like that. Excellent, very nice to have. But why has everything got to be an additional extra if you're already buying into the brand? And don't get me wrong, I feel the same thing about BMW when power fold mirrors are additional extra. Mercedes, again, like, you know, a few of their things that you think, well, that should be a standard if you're buying into the brand, but for whatever reason it's not. These guys have done the same thing with this model here. I think like there's a lot of things that should kind of come with the vehicle that would entice a lot more people to put their hand in the pocket and go, yeah, actually, that comes well spec'd, instead of going, okay, yeah, I'll look at the Maserati, it's a nice car, but now you've got to add all of these bits on it to make sure it is what you want it to be. So yeah, it's a lovely car, and I have to say, looking at it, I'd much prefer to look at this Maserati than I would for an ordinary BMW car, Mercedes car, Audi car, anything like that. I think this definitely has something that's a bit more unique. You don't see that many of them on the road either, which a lot of people quite like to have when it's their own car. I think they've really got onto the right track, but they kind of just missed the mark slightly. I think the suspension's just a little bit too stiff, but it is fun for a nice sporty drive. It's just for every day, it's just a little bit too stiff. And sometimes I just think they could have gone a little bit nicer with the parts that they have pinched from other cars. Maybe just pizzazz them up just a little bit. I don't know what you do, but it's a lovely car, but I think they've missed the mark just ever so slightly. But I can't help but like it. Now that I keep going back and forth with this car, and I do it quite often in my videos. Sometimes I think, you know, should I be reviewing them, because I like aspects of every car. I do like it. I like the fact that you don't see them that often, and I like the fact that you do get that genuine, authentic noise, even from a 3-litre diesel. And it is nice and sharp in the corners. The quality of the materials that you touch and feel, everything that you do, is nice. It's just when you really pay attention to it, that's where you see that they pinched it from a car that maybe shouldn't have been pinched from. The wood, as I say, is lovely. The gear lever, that's a bit of a complicated one, because when you're in drive, it's no problem at all. Obviously you don't have to do anything, it's just an automatic. But they've got a weird system where it's using, obviously, you've got park, reverse, neutral and drive all on one single movement up and down. And sometimes I've found that when you go into to pull into a space, you pull up forward and then you push it all the way back to go into reverse, as you would ordinarily expect with any kind of automatic, and it pushes you into park. And then you're having to panic about, because then you're in park trying to reverse, and then you're pulling it back and it goes past reverse back into neutral or into drive. Sometimes it can just be that little bit complicated to find that reverse gear, and that can sometimes be a bit of a pain in the backside. So yeah, it's not the easiest one to use, but again, is that just, you know, pick and fault where you shouldn't really pick fault? By the end of the day, you are going to get it. The paddle shifters are nice, the Tiptronic's quite nice as well. It just, yeah, something about that reverse side of things, maybe not quite so fun. But all in all, I can't help but like the car. I think it looks really good. I think the gearbox and the engine paired, whilst you're using it, is very good. Maybe the functionality of putting it into certain gears, maybe not. But all in all, I do like the car. I like the colour combination. I wish more came as standard, but it doesn't. It's one of those. But if you're looking for something that's a bit different than your everyday road-going car, they are still worth looking at, providing that the roads around you are a little bit smoother than they are around me. And yeah, I think you have real good fun in them. As I say, you don't necessarily have to take, because they go even more expensive, obviously, than what BMW and Audi would be if you used to take it back to them for a service. So yeah, maybe just find a garage that you know and trust. I'm very fortunate with this one. It's a demo and one owner, full dealership history, both keys, everything's all up together. So for this example, yeah, lovely. Although I do imagine that there are some out there that haven't been looked after quite so well, and you might run into issues with those there. But yeah, thank you for watching. Hope you haven't waffled too much, and please do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel. There should be more videos coming through, especially now that I've moved and I've kind of got like a consistent routine going. So yeah, look forward to seeing you for the next one. Thank you.